On Tech News Today, Yahoo interrogates the NSA, Google makes a huge move on Apple Pay, and Pebble comes out with a color smartwatch. We've got journalists from U.S. News & World Report, Engadget, Wired, and GigOhm, so stick around. Tech News Today is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at gazelle.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and joining us today as co-anchor is Megan Morrone, anchor of Tech News Tonight and host of i5 for the iPhone. Welcome to you, Megan Morrone.
Thanks for having me. Getting a little practice because you're going to Mobile World Congress next
week.
Right. So I'm kind of feeling it out, what it's like in this chair.
That's right. And I had ham the other day, and I'm practicing for being in Barcelona, Spain. They have fantastic pork products there. So, yeah, it's very exciting. It's going to be a huge show. Obviously, there's so much going on there. All these smartphone companies want to become consumer electronics companies, as we talked about on the show yesterday. Samsung's got a big announcement. HTC's got a big announcement all on Sunday. And then there's a mobile event later in the day, Sunday. So even before the event starts officially on Monday, all this other stuff is going to happen. So it's really kind of exciting. Now, Megan, this morning is an interesting anniversary. As you pointed out this morning when we were getting ready for the show, Steve Jobs, if he were still alive, would be 60 years old today. He was born on February 24th, 1955, and he died about 3.5 years ago. What a big anniversary. Now, we have a tweet that, there we go, that Tim Cook sent out, the current CEO. A nice little remembrance of Steve Jobs. But what a legacy that Steve Jobs has made. I mean, you look at Apple's dominance. Yesterday, I think they became twice as valuable as the world's second most valuable company. And that's really, I mean, most of the credit clearly goes to Steve Jobs. It
is amazing. I mean, it's hard every day. I have to leave out some Apple stories. Otherwise, I feel like we would be talking about Apple. It's just, they're just a fascinating company. They do things differently than everyone else. And we keep every story. It's like, well, if everybody did it like Apple, maybe that would work. But, you know, of course, he has some downsides too. I read his biography, but I loved reading about him because it was fascinating. He was, you know, a crazy kid. He was, you know, got in trouble all the time. He hated school, but like, look what he created. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's funny because we're clearly in the post-Jobs Apple. Like, you know, Tim Cook really deserves most of the credit for recent successes for the most part, but you can never quite, the company can't quite move beyond Steve Jobs. For example, in a recent lawsuit, they actually had a deposition that they recorded of Steve Jobs. He was still persuading people all this time later, and now everybody's talking about the Apple iCar, which is something that Steve Jobs wanted to build. He actually talked about
with Volkswagen, right?
Exactly. Yeah. He wanted to build an Apple car. So, you know, it's really fantastic that somebody like that can make such a big impact on an industry, on a company, on the world. And happy birthday, Steve! And so you said you were very sad about this. I guess I'm kind of sad about it too.
I am. Well, you wanted to play this really touching video, and I just thought, I can't do that.
I can't do it.
A show.
I can't, and I won't.
It is, yeah. So, yeah, it's. I wish he were alive today, but I am happy for everything that he did in the time that he was alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we jump into the news? A senior Yahoo executive got the chance to grill the NSA director, Admiral Mike Rogers, about the agency's surveillance practices. Joining us to talk about this exchange and also about comments made by Rogers at a public forum yesterday is Tom Risen, a reporter for U.S. News & World Report. Welcome to you, Tom Risen.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yes, I was there yesterday when NSA Director Rogers was speaking to the New America Foundation Cybersecurity Conference here in Washington, D.C. And there was quite a lot of questions about not just cybersecurity, but surveillance, because you have the head of the National Security Agency on a stage in front of you. So I asked him whether the NSA engaged in spyware, as some reports have said, and he wouldn't comment on that. But then Yahoo's chief information officer, security information officer Alex Stamos, got up and he quizzed him and said, he referred to statements that he made about FBI Director Comey, saying that there was a need for government to crack encrypted communications so that they could monitor for crime and terrorism. And Director Rogers was also trying to maneuver his way through that question, that he was broadly in favor of breaking encryption on web servers, but he and some others there pointed out that there's no secure way to do that without damaging broader cybersecurity. And there's also no legal way to do it, because if you have a program that everybody knows the government is going to be watching, nobody's going to use it. So he faced a lot of questions about how the government can walk this line of monitoring communications without breaking the law, without damaging networks.
Well, you said that the Snowden revelations created blind spots in what the NSA was doing. Can you explain a little bit more about what he said about those blind spots, what those mean?
I wish I could, because every government security official says this. They say the Snowden revelations have damaged security. They say that the NSA surveillance program is a key part of our intelligence gathering, and everyone does it. It is part of the modern world we live in, where we need to monitor where people are. They're on the internet, but they say that Snowden's revelations have damaged security and endangered lives without giving any evidence. So he just says there's blind spots. A CNN reporter was quizzing him on, trying to get him to open up about that, and he didn't give any specifics. He just said there's blind spots. He says surveillance is not the end-all be-all of intelligence gathering, but it is an important part of how the U.S. does spying. So I wish I could explain more.
It's clear that he's using all of his Naval Academy training to evade questions. It was an amazing and brilliant dodging of many of the hardest questions that people were throwing at him from all quarters. Now, I want to return just briefly to Yahoo's Chief Information Security Officer, Alex Stamos, and his comments. And the reason for that is that I really liked the thrust of where he was going with those questions. Essentially, what he was saying was that, you're asking for U.S. companies to do X, Y, and Z, provide backdoors, whatever it is. Do you want us to provide those to China as well, and Iran and all these other countries, number one? Or do you want us to be in the position of saying, okay, you're a good country and you're a bad country, and we're going to play ball with this country but not that country? I love that line of questioning, because I think that also applies to what's happening in Europe with the right to be forgotten. Europe wants the right to censor search results globally based on European norms and laws. And my question to the European regulators would be, okay, so does China get to censor globally? Does Iran get to censor globally? Does North Korea and Pakistan get to censor globally? Or is it just the Europeans get to censor globally? And I think this is the key thing that censoring and surveilling and eavesdropping governments around the world have to deal with. These are international companies that deal with every single country, and if they're playing favorites between nations, they're going to get booted out of those countries, and that's not good for anyone. So if you could just talk a little bit about that, and I imagine that Admiral Rogers' response was a non-response, but can you go into a little bit of detail about that part of the exchange?
Yeah, Admiral Rogers was asked by Stamos about, how this is kind of a double standard. If, the United States gets to do it, that sets a bad example for other countries that might consider doing it. There's a lot of talk about internet governance, about how countries get to work with foreign technology companies, whether they can require them to have data based in their country so that they have legal control over it, whether censorship, as you mentioned, or privacy regulations, as you mentioned. And Yahoo's been around longer than Google, so they've been thinking about this. They had to deal with this with China a number of years ago, and so Yahoo is very well versed in this dilemma. And he was kind of saying, so he was pointing out to him this double standard about the United States says that it's okay to surveil networks, but you haven't thought about the international implications.
Well, Tom, you said at the beginning of our interview that you asked him about spyware and whether the government was putting spyware on our computers or on our devices, as Kaspersky reported last week. And he avoided the question, but he said we're doing everything under the law. Is he saying that's legal for them to do that?
Well, they've got legal basis, like, the NSA cites the Patriot Act Section 215 as the authority that gives them the right to monitor domestic networks. And there's also the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Every time they need to monitor networks, they go to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and ask them to sign off on it. But the court has been criticized as giving a rubber stamp to government. Almost every time they ask, they almost always say yes. So this is that's another tricky way that government officials answer questions. They say that they have the legal right to do it, but they have if you got a lawyer to sit down and looked at some of these regulations, you would wonder whether they are interpreting them too broadly or whether they actually have this right, or maybe they just claim that it gives them the right because nobody's around to challenge it.
Tom Risen is at usnews.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Risen. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
Thanks so much.
So we want to hear from you. Let us know if you think the NSA should be given the keys, the back door, to Yahoo and other companies so that they can fight terrorism through surveillance, or whether the Silicon Valley companies should keep them out, lock them out, and oppose their desire to get in there and read encrypted communication. Send email to tnt@twit.tv and let us know what you think about that story. Well, we got some more news for you in just a sec, but first I want to talk about Blue Apron, one of our sponsors today. Blue Apron is a wonderful site and I love them because they make me feel like a brilliant chef, even though I'm not. I can take their package that comes in the mail. Everything's refrigerated by ice packs inside. And in there is typically 3 meals. I have the 3-meal-a-week plan. And right at the top of the box, you open the box, and right at the top of the box is 3 cards. Each meal has its own card printed beautifully on front and back. The front is a list of ingredients and some really nice pictures to show you what the meal should look like. And I have to say that every single time I've made it, it looks just like the picture. I mean, it's amazing. And on the other side are step-by-step instructions for how to make that particular meal. And it's just so much fun to do. They give you exactly what you need. They have all kinds of exotic ingredients you're unlikely to have in your house oftentimes, and you'll never get the same meal twice. That's one of the most fascinating things about it. It really adds enormous variety to your diet. Each meal is balanced and between 500 and 700 calories per serving, so it's not going to be something like that's going to fill you up, and it's extremely affordable. You'd think something like this would cost a fortune, but in fact, it costs less than $10 per person per meal. How amazing is that? And it's great for, if you've got somebody in college, you want your kids to eat really well. If you're going to go to an Airbnb type of place that has a kitchen, just bring the whole box with you, and you've got everything you need to make fantastic, better than restaurant quality meals. I mean, this is really, really high quality stuff here. Blue Apron is a better way to cook. Check out this week's menu and get your first 2 meals free. You got to try this, 2 meals free, by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's right, 2 meals free just for going to blueapron.com, but don't forget the /twit part. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Tech News Today.
On to our next story. Apple Pay, Schmapple Pay, the race to the top of the mobile payment ladder is starting to heat up. Yesterday, Google announced deals with AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon to ensure that Google Wallet will come pre-installed on Android phones. We've invited Devindra Hardawar, senior editor at Engadget, to talk about this.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming. So where will Wallet be pre-installed?
Basically on Android phones running KitKat or higher later this year for AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. And that's kind of a big deal because before it was something that you'd had to go and find in the Google Play Store and set up. It kind of brings the ease of use to about the same parity as Apple Pay.
Now, Devindra, a lot of people seem to be chattering about the idea that Google bought SoftCard, but they didn't really buy them. Can you clarify the relationship between Google and SoftCard at this point?
It is really confusing. All I know so far, and all the companies have said, is that Google's acquiring some technology and some intellectual property from soft cards. So that's probably referring to patents and things like that. And it's strange because I'm not sure if there's anything soft card was doing that Google Wallet didn't. Google already had a tap and pay NFC mobile payments. Soft card did that as well. But it seems like the deal may have just been something Google had to do to appease these carriers, because they're the ones who basically made Google Wallet fail over the past couple of years.
So they made Google Wallet fail because they just wouldn't let them in. They wanted to use their soft card technology. And so how did they overcome these obstacles? I mean, what was the change? I think, well, first of all, we saw that soft card, which was originally called ISIS for the first couple of years, that really just wasn't going anywhere. It took forever to launch. It launched in a couple markets, and we haven't really seen many reports of it actually being used by people. And Google Wallet kind of had the same problems. And so now that Apple Pay is out there, and it's growing significantly. Even the U.S. government is going to be supporting it later this year for certain things. I think Google and the carriers see that they need a solution that people will actually use, and they just kind of have to stop being so stubborn.
To that point, I remember when Google came out with Google Wallet. I happened to be an Android user at the time, and then I was an iPhone user when Apple came out with Apple Pay. And I distinctly recall being mildly thrilled when trying Google Wallet the first few times, and super thrilled using Apple Pay. Apple Pay is just incredibly easy and fun to use.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit ridiculous how easy it is. What is Google's response going to be? Are they going to get to, now that they're going to be more ubiquitous, how are they going to get to that point where the experience is at least as easy as Apple Pay?
I think Google, it's a company that takes a long time to figure out the design of things, right? Android was kind of ugly and kind of like a mess of a design for the first couple of years, and now it's kind of caught up. So maybe now, having the app there by default will be a big thing, because people will know when you buy a phone, you have this capability. It used to be also some phones couldn't even use the Google Wallet app, even if you found it on Google Play. So I think just having access to it be a lot more clear is something that's going to help a lot. And hopefully we'll see just the actual act of using Google Wallet to be easier too. The thing about Apple Pay is you can authenticate with the Touch ID, with the fingerprint sensor. Google Wallet required you to type in a passcode. So just on the level of how you use it, Apple Pay had a lot of things going for it. As we see more fingerprint stuff coming to Android phones, I expect that whole process for Google Wallet to get easier too.
And so where does the Samsung acquired Loop Pay last week, where does that fit in? You can use Loop Pay without NFC reader, right? You can use it with the standard credit card readers. What Google Wallet, do they have to have the technology at the pay where they pay?
Yeah, you need NFC, just like you do for Apple Pay. And the thing about Samsung and Loop Pay that's really interesting is that Loop Pay's technology basically mimics swiping your card at a credit card terminal. So you can hold your phone up with Loop Pay's technology and just hold it up to like the card swiping area, and it'll act like an NFC transaction. So it's really weird how that works. The good thing for Samsung is that they'll be able to build that technology into their phones. And, just by default, they'll support many more merchants. They'll support pretty much anybody who can take credit cards. But the issue there is that they're relying on older technology. A lot of these terminals are going to be upgraded, over the next couple of years with things like chip and pin and just higher levels of encryption. So Loop Pay is going to have to upgrade because they're more catering to existing markets. So it's going to be really interesting. We're finally seeing mobile payments heating up.
Well, that was Devindra Hardawar from Engadget. Thank you so much, Devindra. You can follow everything that he's working on at Devindra.
Thank you.
The world's leading smartwatch announced a new update today. Pebble sold 1 million watches since launching in 2013, and about 3 hours ago, they launched the new version called Pebble Time. Wired's Christina Bonnington joins us now, and right on time, too. Welcome to you, Christina.
Hey there.
We reported rumors previously about a new version, a new color screen for the watch. Can you tell us first about the Pebble's new screen?
Yeah, so it's very similar to the Pebble's old screen, which was an e-paper display, black and white. This one is color. It supports 64 different colors, and it's also just the same kind of low power consumption as the original e-paper display. So you still end up getting about 7 days of battery life out of the watch, because the display is one of the biggest parts that drains battery.
So they updated the user interface also. What did they do there?
So before, what Pebble had going on was you had kind of three sections of the watch. You had the watch faces, you had your notifications, and you had your apps. And what they've done is kind of simplified that now into a timeline-based interface. So everything either happens in the past, present, or the future. So when you're looking at the past, you're looking at things like an email that you missed or your step count for the day. In the present, just like scrolling through on the buttons on the watch. In the present, you've got, current notifications, calls, and text messages. And you've got, things like the current traffic conditions outside and the weather. And then in the future, you can look at things that are on your calendar, what's next on your to-do list, information about a movie you're going to see tonight, and things like that.
I love that. That reminds me a lot of Google Glass, which I thought would be a great user interface. I think I mentioned it on the show a couple of times for a smartwatch. Just, this whole time-based linear interface, I think, is just fantastic. Now, Pebble is famous for being a super, super successful Kickstarter campaigner. And today they reached another crowdfunding milestone. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so they launched this morning. They decided to launch on Kickstarter rather than doing just a pre-sale campaign on their website or something, since they originally launched back on Kickstarter. And they are now the fastest company to ever reach the $1 million mark. They did it in 44 minutes. And last I checked, they were now at over $4 million. Over $4.5 million.
We're looking at the screen. Yeah, we're looking at the screen now, and it's at 4,500,000. Just hit the 4,500,000 mark. It's changing as we speak.
It's incredible.
So
there's such a huge.
Go ahead.
Oh, there's such a huge demand. Like, the Pebble following is so devout and so vocal, and they're really into it. It's incredible to just watch this demand happening in real time.
It is. So can you tell us a little bit more about the voice and audio features? There's a waterproof microphone in the watch?
Yes, so that's one of the new things that they added to the watch this time around. It has a waterproof mic, and what you can do is you can speak into the watch, and it can record an audio recording that you can send over email or Facebook Messenger, or it'll also just transcribe what you say into text, so you can send it as a text message. So really nice, something that you see on Android Wear, something that we'll see on the upcoming Apple Watch, but just very simple and only using that voice dictation only for messages.
One of the big advantages of this type of watch is that it has longer battery life, approximately 7 days, compared to the Apple Watch's 1, if you're lucky. Now, I'm sold. Now, when will I be able to buy one of these, and how much is it going to cost me?
You can pre-order them now. They're available for $200, and they're going to ship in May. So we've still got 2 months. It's 30 days left on the Kickstarter, which it's already very well funded. And $200. So it's a fraction of the price that some of the more full-featured Apple Watch, fancier smartwatches are going to cost.
Awesome. Christina Bonnington is at Wired.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at RedGirlSays. Thanks for joining us, Christina. Little weird Skype delays there. Sorry about that, but the audio was pretty good for the most part.
It'll probably work better if she was using her Pebble watch to do the video next time. So speaking of video, a video surfaced confirming rumors of a new Chromebook Pixel, but shortly afterwards, the video was marked private. Very suspicious, but it was not before the website OMG Chrome captured part of the video. Kevin Tofel reported the story for GigaOM. What's the story here behind this Chrome Pixel?
Well, the story is this is actually the second time in about 2 weeks that Google has let some information out and kind of pulled it back on the Pixel. So I don't know if these are planned leaks or not, but earlier this month we had seen some screenshots of what Google's working on in the Chromium OS bug tracker, and we saw hints of a new Pixel. Now Google has actually said it's coming, and they have pulled that video, so it's a pretty safe bet. At this point, though, I'm not expecting major changes for this device from 2 years ago when it first came out. I purchased one back then. I paid $1,449 for that. So I don't expect a big change in the design. I expect a lot of internals to be changed, and I'm hoping that the price comes down a little bit.
And it was especially painful for you and me, Kevin, I know, because, of course, they gave us one, and then we gave them back and then bought one. It's more, believe me, it's more painful when you have one and you give it back and then have to pay for it. Now, Kevin, I'm curious about this. I think that Google has, in my view, really failed with the Chromebook Pixel, and the reason for that, in the Chromebook in general, and the reason for that is that everybody is so vexed about all these security problems, everything from Superfish to all the rest, all the malware, the phishing attacks, et cetera, et cetera. And the Chromebook platform, or something like it, is a solution to that. You really can't do much in terms of hacking or compromising a Chromebook because everything is in the cloud. So there's really no, it's very, very difficult, to the best of my knowledge, to really to hack it the way you can other devices. Do you have any sense of why that is the case? Is it a problem that people don't understand it, or are there real limitations to it that would legitimately prevent people from doing what they want to do?
I think it's a combination of things, Mike. And it's funny that you mentioned Superfish, because I tweeted out that day, how to remove Superfish on a Chromebook. Get Chromebook, done. I mean, that was it. Yes, you've got all your data in the cloud, and some people have a legitimate concern about all their information on Google servers, privacy, and so on. There's also Chrome OS is actually built on a Linux kernel, and all your individual tabs in the browser are sandboxed. So there's a lot of built-in security to Chrome OS, which is good. I think, yes, Google may not market this very well, number one. That's part of it. But the other thing is, some people do need more than the browser and the apps that Chromebooks can run. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Buy a Mac, buy a PC, buy a Linux box, whatever you need. The thing is, Google really hasn't made a good play for what the Chromebook can and can't do, as opposed to Microsoft, who has said, hey, look at all these things a PC can do that a Chromebook can't. Now, I don't necessarily agree with their list, because I think some of it was not accurate, but regardless, give them credit for trying. Google's not even really doing too much there in the way of Chromebook marketing, in my opinion.
So you say in your article that this Chromebook Pixel is really for developers, and that when people say that the first one's for developers also, and when people say it's a failure, it's really just they weren't trying to make it a success to the general public. Do you agree with that, or is that kind of just what they're saying afterwards?
No, I would agree. I mean, you have to keep this in perspective. This is a device that lots of Googlers actually use to do their jobs, and obviously they can work in a browser, or they can remote to other devices, or they can work in the cloud on integrated development environments and create code. Google's not in the business of making a Pixel at a high price that's going to sell millions of units. I mean, it's just not in that market. There's too many other competitors there. Google doesn't even really make any Chromebook. They just license out the OS, so to speak, and let their hardware partners do that. So this is a way for people outside of Google to get a premium device, a premium Chrome experience. You're going to pay a premium price, of course, but for the people whose needs it meets, it's speaking from somebody who spent their own money on it, it's done very well.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question only because I know you cover the entire mobile realm, but it seems to me that Google has kind of lost its hardware mojo. A year or two ago, they were really hitting them out of the park. I thought that their Nexus phone was just fantastic. It was very tinkerable. It had a real purpose, I think, and it was a nice high-end phone that had special features you could get only on that device. Likewise, the Chromebook Pixel. Do you think that that's true? And if you do think that's true, do you think this is related to the fact that Sundar Pichai now runs almost everything at Google? He used to just run, I guess, the Chrome, and now he's got Android and all the rest. What are your general thoughts about Google as a hardware company? I mean, you just mentioned that Google does license this out, but still, they're in charge of the design. But the Moto X is gone, the Nexus is being transformed, and now I'm a little nervous about this Chromebook Pixel. Do you think that it'll be as awesome as the last one, or better?
You raised some valid concerns, Mike. I kind of had high hopes when Google actually purchased Motorola back about 2 years ago. They've since spun that off and sold it to Lenovo. I just don't think Google wants to be in the consumer hardware business. It's a very difficult business to be in. Profit margins are not maybe where Google might like them to be. That's not their expertise. So I don't really have a problem with them, creating the platforms and working with hardware partners to do so. Microsoft is very much the same way, only more recently having a resurgence in laptops and phones and such. Having such a good experience with the Pixel in terms of what it does for me, I'm not too concerned. I mean, this is a dog fooding experiment here. Googlers are using these devices themselves, and let's put it this way: if Googlers can't do their jobs, we're all in trouble because we rely on Google so much. So I'm not too concerned about a Pixel 2 and in terms of Google's commitment to hardware.
Well, Kevin, will you be covering Mobile World Congress next week?
I will be doing so from afar here in southeastern Pennsylvania. I just haven't made the trip across the pond to Barcelona yet, so I will be watching just as you guys do. Although, Mike, I believe you are going?
I am going, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, I'll bring you a bottle of absinthe.
Oh, there you go.
With the wormwood, the good kind.
Yes.
Kevin Tofel is a writer at gigaohm.com, and you can see what he's up to on Twitter at Kevin C. Tofel. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone was super impressed by Microsoft's HoloLens demo last month. HoloLens appears to place photorealistic, virtual reality-like objects into real life. But Microsoft isn't the only company working on such technology. Another company called Magic Leap is also building something similar but with a lot more secrecy. Magic Leap is backed by Google and other investors, and because Magic Leap hasn't publicly demonstrated its technology, I invited MIT Technology Review senior mobile editor Rachel Metz on the show to talk about it, because she's tried it and she's written a really great piece about it. Welcome to you, Rachel.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Now, so tell me, what's it like?
It's really cool. It's what you see when you're trying out what they have there right now, or at least what I saw. Initially was a really big prototype. I described it in the piece as sort of like scaffolding that's larger than you. And you've got like these lenses in front of you that you peer through, and you see some images. It was a bunch of monsters and some robots that were overlaid with the reality in front of me. And then they showed me a smaller prototype as well that they're using to do some projects of theirs to figure out how to program different things for it. And they're getting smaller and smaller. So hopefully in the very near future, it'll be something kind of like this, but maybe bigger that you would wear on your face.
So, Rachel, how would you compare it to Oculus Rift or Microsoft's HoloLens from what we've seen of that?
It looks fairly similar to HoloLens. I have not tried that one just yet, but it does look pretty similar based on the images I've seen and the descriptions people have given. It's kind of different from Oculus Rift. It's similar but different. Oculus Rift is more about virtual reality and going into a whole new environment. Magic Leap can bring those interesting virtual images into your environment. So they look like they're there with you, even though logically, there probably isn't a monster hanging out on your desk or, right in front of you.
Probably.
Probably. You never know. But they also, though, can do virtual reality. I mean, a lot of this is just about light and how much light you want to sort of spray at somebody's retinas. So they could do a whole virtual reality thing with Magic Leap, or they could just have specific images that you see in front of you.
Now, did you get a sense of how complex, and of course by how complex I mean how expensive the hardware is that they're using? Are they leading toward a device that's going to cost $300 or $3,000? What's your sense of that?
That's hard to say right now, especially because I'm not entirely sure how far out it is. I mean, I would hope to see it in the next couple of years, and that's what I would expect. But in terms of price, they said the closest I could get from them was that it'll be in line with some other consumer electronics, but that could mean a lot of things.
So with augmented reality and especially virtual reality, a lot of people complain about the disorientation. They feel sick when they're using it. Did you have you heard anything, or did you experience that with this?
I did not, and that was something that they talked to me a lot about, and it's something that a lot of people in the virtual reality and augmented reality community are concerned about. Their Magic Leap would say that stereoscopic 3D, which is what a lot of virtual and augmented reality technologies today use, because they're tricking your eyes instead of working with the way that you normally see things, it sort of screws up the way that you perceive depth. And what they're trying to do is match more what your eyes and brain do naturally. I didn't feel a sense of dizziness or nausea when I was using Magic Leap's technology, which is something that I've experienced before with some virtual reality technologies. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It depends how people are using it and how long they're using it, that kind of thing.
When I think about how long it's going to be before I can buy this kind of technology, I feel a little bit of nausea myself. Rachel Metz is at technologyreview.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Rachel Metz. Thanks for joining us today, Rachel.
Sure, thanks a lot.
And according to an updated company support page for Google's blogging platform and also letters sent directly to bloggers, the company is instituting new rules about sharing sexually explicit images and video and graphic nudity on Blogger. Google says that after March 23rd of this year, they will change all public blogs to private if they think the blogger is violating this new rule.
Yeah, man, wow. And I think people are wondering why they're doing this, and I think the answer is quite simple. It's easy for them to go to places all over the world that have different priorities, and they can go to places that with a predominantly Muslim population, or places that are extremely religious or have more traditional values, and they don't have to have that argument, right? And so, but I think the other thing that needs to be kept in mind about all this is this makes Marissa Mayer she's in charge of the last big porn blogging empire, I guess, if you will, and it's kind of a weird position for them to be in. So I don't know if they want to do that. There's a lot of money in it, of course, but I'm not sure that Yahoo wants to present themselves as the sort of X-rated alternative to Blogger.
Right. Well, what about Instagram? I mean, you could still post things on Instagram
and Twitter as well, right? But Instagram, that's a different kind of thing. I think that the Blogger, I think, is a little bit closer to Tumblr. In the sense that it's a blogging platform primarily, even though Tumblr is really a social blogging. There's better social sharing features and so on. But still, I think that if you want to have a blog, Tumblr is an option. Instagram isn't an option to have a blog per se. But it is an interesting direction. And of course, the other element of this is that Google is a company that is constantly pulling the rug out from under people. I mean, not to defend adult material too much here. I mean, a lot of it is very objectionable, of course. A lot of it isn't.
Right. But you're just defending choice, people's choice.
Defending choice is worth doing, but I think the bigger problem for Google as a business is that it's getting to the point where you can't really trust Google, because if these are platforms that you spend enormous time and effort and money building and investing in, and if they completely pull the rug out from under you, Google Reader is an example where people were really into Reader and they just canceled it. All their social networks before Google Plus, they just canceled those. Poor Gina Trapani, who's a popular host on the Twit network, wrote a book, and right after she invested all this time and effort writing a book, they canceled Google Wave. And so, Google is becoming, and this is bolstering, they already have their reputation, but it's bolstering their reputation as a company that will change their mind about things that you've invested enormous amounts of time and effort on.
That's an interesting take on this topic. I mean, I think it's really interesting. I'm having trouble getting my mind around whether it's really censorship, because they're not removing the photos. They're just making it private. And if you suppose you have photos like that, you can allow other people to look at them. It's just your choice. But the fact that they're deciding what's pornography, what's adult, that's where it's like... it's
tricky. Facebook has not done well with that. No. Well, we got some updates for you for products. Apple rolled out the beta version of its iOS 8.3 yesterday, and with it, some new languages for Siri. Siri is becoming much more multilingual. According to ZDNet, the new and improved Siri will know Russian, Dutch, Danish, Portuguese, Swedish, Thai, and Turkish. Major languages there. And Siri currently, of course, knows Cantonese, English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Mandarin, and Spanish. iOS 8.3 is scheduled to be released later this year. And in other product update news, Microsoft updated its band fitness bracelet with a Cortana dictation mode and also a QWERTY keyboard, of all things. The keyboard uses Microsoft's WordFlow software from Windows Phone to help pick the right words as you type them. I'm tempted to get this thing just so I can sit there and type on this tiny keyboard.
I've been interested in it. I don't have a wearable yet. The Apple Watch is not available to me yet. It does look interesting.
I love tiny QWERTY keyboards.
Apple has acquired a music and sound plugin maker called Camel Audio, according to a report on Mac Rumors. Camel Audio makes a wide range of plugins, synthesizers, effects, and sound libraries, which were typically came with software sold by the company called Alchemy for $249. They stopped selling that product in early January.
Now, this is a scoop by that blog, and of course they sort of divined this by piecing together all kinds of fragmentary evidence. Including the most, the biggest piece of evidence was the fact that this little company changed its address to Microsoft's address. So that's an indication that they've all moved to Microsoft's building over there. We got some courtroom drama for you. A $16 million Silicon Valley gender discrimination lawsuit goes to trial today in a San Francisco Superior Court. A former partner in the Sand Hill Road venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield & Byers, whose name is Ellen Powell, is suing the company, saying they retaliated against her for complaining about sexual harassment by holding back a promotion and a raise. Kleiner Perkins denies the accusation and says Powell's lack of promotion resulted from her underperformance. Powell, by the way, is the current CEO of Reddit.
In security news, late yesterday, CTO of troubled laptop maker Lenovo published an open letter apologizing again for the Superfish debacle and reassuring everyone that their software was not in their high-end laptops, just in the cheap ones, not in the ThinkPads. In case you haven't been following the story, Lenovo shipped laptops with search technology that was both annoying and dangerous. And the company has stopped shipping computers with the software, but they're still in a big old mess. And there's this software in a lot of other computers. So whatever you're running, run your security updates because it will clean off Superfish. But
if you're interested in this this issue, you listen to or watch the Sunday episode of Twit because they had a really great conversation about that. Leo called for boycotting Lenovo and possibly Motorola as well, which is now owned by Lenovo. And
he doesn't like to be spied on, Leo.
Exactly. Well, I mean, they had a great they had a great conversation, and if I can oversimplify it greatly here, the conversation was essentially that the reason companies do this, the reason they have junkware, crapware, whatever you want to call it, on their laptops is because they don't make money on laptops. Users choose based on price, and therefore the companies, in order to sell any number of laptops of any significance at all, have to essentially sell laptops at or below the price that it costs them to build those laptops. And so they make up money with all this junkware. And, you know, the more dangerous and objectionable junkware, they get more money for that.
Right.
So there's an incentive. But I agree with Leo's call for a boycott because, again, this is a dollars and cents issue. They will go with whatever solution is making them the most money. And if people are boycotting Lenovo because they're putting this horrible back doors in there and making it very insecure, then they'll change their behavior, and that's the only thing that's going to get them to change this kind of practice. Yeah,
well, I agree with part of what's really offensive is they didn't put them in the ThinkPads. They didn't put them in the laptops where people knew better. It was the cheaper laptops. My nephew saved all his Best Buy gift certificates that he got at Christmas. He's been saving money, got a Lenovo laptop. He was so happy, and now he's just so sad. And it's just, you know, it's because it's, you know, people have trust in the company and they've just lost it. So they can keep apologizing, but they really messed up.
Yeah.
And the bigger part of the story is that now that they've started looking for it, it really isn't a lot of other software. It's an Adaware. Do you remember Adaware was the thing that we used against spyware? And it's in Superfish or Superfish-like technology, not Superfish. I think Commodious software that spies on you and sends ads is in there too. We won't stand for it.
No, we won't. And I think the thing to do is, you know, by all means, buy that cheap laptop. But once you get it home, reformat it immediately and reinstall a clean version of the operating system. You know, you're not a geek for no reason at all. I mean, you know, take charge and just don't let that junkware live on your laptop. That's my opinion. In People in the News, Atari pioneer Steve Bristow died Sunday, according to the Atari History Museum. Before coming to Atari, Bristow worked with Nolan Bushnell as an intern on Computer Space, one of the first, if not the first, arcade game ever.
And in big numbers today, 2 million, that's how many businesses Facebook says are using Facebook advertising. Today they took advantage of that by launching the Ads Manager app to help businesses create, manage, and track ads. Right now it's only on iOS, and it's only in the US for now, but they will be rolling it out globally soon. 36 is another big number. That's the percentage of Germans who say they lie to protect their privacy when asked to provide personal details online. That's according to a new report by security company Symantec. Some 34% of UK and Spanish residents do the same. Young people, this will come as no surprise, between the ages of 18 and 24 were found to be the most likely to lie online.
All right, well, we've got some wrap-ups for you in just a second, but first, let's talk about Gazelle, our second sponsor today. You know, everybody knows that Gazelle will buy your used gadget, and, you know, you really have to sell your old stuff to Gazelle because, you know, people think it's going to be hard, it's going to take a while, it's going to be a problem. None of those things are true. Simply go to the website, indicate the gadget, tell its condition. They send you a box, you put it in the box. They even give you the tape to seal the box. and off it goes, and you get paid. It's really fantastic. What a lot of people don't know about Gazelle, though, is they'll buy your old Mac. They'll buy your old MacBook laptop or your Mac desktop. Yeah, they will actually do that. They'll also buy lots of tablets. They'll even buy your old iPod. If you got an iPod sitting around, don't sit on that iPod. It's not getting any more valuable. It's getting less valuable. That is for sure, and that's the one thing you can count on. Of course, Gazelle now will sell you directly a pre-owned device, and if you buy a certified like new device, it's just like a brand new phone. If you buy a certified good, it has some general signs of wear, but it functions perfectly, and the price you're going to get for that device is really going to be amazing. You'll get a better device if you buy it from Gazelle, because for the same money, you get a much better price for whatever it is that you're buying. So find out what your iPhone's worth. Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the tech news today. Our TNT fan of the day is Andrew T., who posted this video on Google+, and we'll go ahead and let him tell you, we'll let Andrew T. tell you how he likes to watch TNT.
Hey, this is Andrew T., and I watch my favorite newscast, Tech News Today, all the time. But one of my favorite times to watch is while editing my videos for my brand new YouTube channel, AT Tech.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Andrew T. That is fantastic. We'll have to check out your show, and thank you for checking out our show. Really appreciate that. How do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video like Andrew, or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, or anywhere, really. We'll find it no matter where it is, as long as you use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT. So, Megan, thank you so much for co-anchoring today. Go ahead and plug your stuff. It's all yours.
Well, every day I do Tech News Tonight, and Thursday you will be hosting Tech News Tonight, Mike, because I will be out of town on a school field trip, spending the night recreating the Civil War. Mike will be here, maybe recreating the Civil War, maybe talking about tech news. We'll find out on Thursday. And I also host i5 for the iPhone, which is every Wednesday. And next week I'll be filling in for Mike on TNT. And Friday of this week, Jason Howell of all our Android shows will be hosting TN2 as Mike goes to Barcelona.
Yes, Mike Goes to Barcelona. That's the name of the movie that we're working on.
Yes, we should do that. So, yeah. And it will be shot all on our Pebble watches.
That's right. We're going to do it on an iPad, just like Apple does.
Yeah.
So who knows? All right. Well, thank you so much, Megan. All right, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher. Great place to subscribe. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv or on the app or browser plugin of your choice. If you're ever in the area, come on in and watch us live. We love a live audience. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, and you can follow me personally on Instagram at instagram.com/Mike Elgan with one E, MikeElgan. Let us know what you think. Send an email to tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW. And don't miss Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific every weeknight. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.